Once again, Lydia Callas is signing for us, and thank you. We're joined by Senator Chuck Schumer and Council Speaker Christine Quinn, and we're here to update you on Hurricane Sandy, which has now officially left the New York City area. But I think it's fair to say the path of destruction that she left in her wake is going to be felt for quite some time. Make no mistake about it, this was a devastating storm, maybe the worst that we have ever experienced. Our first responders have been doing a heroic job protecting our city and saving lives, and they are still fighting fires and conducting life-saving search and rescue missions, and we owe them an enormous debt of gratitude. The storm brought something like 23 serious fires to parts of Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, as well as City Island and the Bronx. The terrible fire on Breezy Point is now under control, but we believe we lost more than 80 houses. The search and recovery operations there are ongoing. If any of you saw the pictures on television, it looked like a forest fire out in the Midwest. The winds were just devastating, blowing from one building to the next one, and those buildings were close together. We are hoping and praying that there was no loss of life in those fires, but even if we can save every life, we know that many people have lost their homes, and I want them to know that they have our full support in the days and weeks ahead. The 76 shelters we opened will remain open today, and we will continue to keep shelters open until people displaced by the storm can safely return to their homes or find temporary housing. Our first priority in this storm was and continues to be protecting lives, and that's why we ordered an evacuation of the areas most at risk and why we worked so hard to get people out. Sadly, this storm claimed the lives of people throughout the region, including at least 10 in our city, and tragically we expect that number to go up as information continues to come in. And I did want to extend my condolences to all the families who lost loved ones in the storm and ask all New Yorkers to keep them in their thoughts and prayers. In addition to the lives we lost, the damage we suffered across the city is clearly extensive, and it will not be repaired overnight. The two biggest challenges facing our city going forward are getting our mass transit system up and running and restoring power. This morning we have begun the work of clearing and reopening bridges and roadways, both of which will take some time, and the best ways New Yorkers can help us get this done quickly is to stay off the roads. The work is well underway. East River bridges have already been reopened. The work of getting our mass transit grid and our power grid restored, however, is going to take more time and a lot of patience. MTA CEO Joe Lhota has described this as the worst disaster the agency has seen in the 108 years the subways have been running, and Con Ed has described the damage done to its power systems as unprecedented in scope. So clearly the challenges our city faces in the coming days are enormous. The MTA and Con Ed both have very strong leaders and extraordinarily dedicated workers. They are working extremely hard, and they will continue to work around the clock to get their systems fixed. Our administration will move heaven and earth to help them so we can get back up and running as quickly as humanly possible. But the damages that they face really are enormous. Here's the information that we have as of this moment regarding Con Ed and the MTA. The most recent report has approximately 750,000 New Yorkers without power. There are something like 326 buildings and 59 public housing developments without power. That's about 60,000 people in more than 26,000 apartments, and many of them are in Zone A. The steam system in Manhattan south of 42nd Street was shut down as a preventive step by Con Ed. That affects heating, air conditioning, ventilation systems, including many of our hospitals. And because they shut it down preemptively, we're hopeful that the steam system can be restored fairly soon. I spoke to Con Ed CEO Kevin Burke to offer any assistance that we can provide. We will talk to him again later on. But I think it is fair to say that you should expect, given the extent of the damage, power may be out in lots of places for 2 or 3 days and maybe even a little bit longer than that. There is extensive flooding in all under-river subway tunnels. Subway yards where rail trains are typically stored also flooded, And I think that shows the wisdom of Joe Lhota in moving trains out of there to higher ground. I don't think there was any damage done to the rolling stock, but the tunnels all flooded, and that's going to be a big problem to get them back going. Public transportation remains closed until further notice is a good way to think about it. There is no firm timeline for the reactivation of bus or train service, but I'm sure the MTA will do everything it can to have limited bus service, perhaps this afternoon, and hopefully we'll be able to announce, or Joe Lhota will be able to announce, restoration of most bus service by tomorrow. We certainly think the roads by tomorrow will be clear and free of water. All major airports serving the metro area are closed today. Runways are flooded, and there are no flights leaving or arriving. How much damage was done to the navigation equipment and lighting around them, we don't know yet. To help people get around, I've signed an executive order that permits cab drivers to pick up multiple passengers, even if a passenger is already in the cab. It will also allow livery and black cars to pick up passengers off the street anywhere in the city. These measures will be in place as long as MTA service is out. If you use one of these cars, please make sure that the car has a TLC license plate. Now let me bring you up to date on our hospitals. We reported last night that NYU Downtown and the Manhattan Veterans Hospitals were closed. NYU Langone also had to be evacuated overnight. That is virtually complete. Bellevue Hospital has lost power, but at the moment is operating on backup power. Coney Island Hospital has been evacuated. The Department of Health is sending people to each of the hospitals and chronic care facilities in Zone A. We've had significant challenges at many of our hospitals and healthcare facilities. Fortunately, as of now, there has been no storm-related fatalities at any of them. There are more than 6,100 people in our emergency shelters, and I'm happy to say there are more than 2,200 city staff working in those shelters right now. A number of our shelters lost power last night, but we were able to get backup generators to those that didn't have one. We've received almost 4,000 tree service requests since the storm began. Those are for damaged or falling trees. The majority of those are in Queens. Let me just urge everybody, 311 for downed trees, please, or text 311 to report damage. They represent a real and serious danger, and we see very tragic proof of that today. Yesterday, a partly damaged crane at a site on West 57th Street required evacuation of the immediate vicinity. The Department of Buildings has determined that the crane is currently stable. However, we can't fully secure the crane until the wind dies down. The procedure there will, when the winds die down, be to try to get the boom and strap it to the building, and then we could reopen the streets, and then over a period of time, the contracting company will have to figure out ways to build a new crane on top and take that one down. Schools, as you know, are closed today, and I'm announcing they will also be closed tomorrow. As to city employees, here's what we've told them. New Yorkers need your help today. Working for the city, we have an obligation to help others. If your office is open and if you can safely, and I repeat safely, get to work, please do so. If your office is closed and you can safely report to a shelter to assist with operations, please do so. For example, all HRA centers are open for the people who need to access benefits, including replacement food stamp vouchers for people who lost food as a result of the storm. In addition, we are beginning to reach out to small businesses to help them recover their business and stay in business. 311 has long waiting times right now, so please use 311 online or text 311. Verizon had some problems with their lines, but we've managed to keep some of the 311 lines open. 911 has been going without a hitch. Delays got up to 5 minutes. Last time I checked, they were minimal. But 911 has to be reserved only for life-threatening things, not for a tree, please. We've just got to make sure that if somebody has a real emergency, we can get to them. And in terms of real emergencies, if you see a power line down, don't go near it. We've had some people killed for stepping in a puddle where a power line had also touched the water. We expected an unprecedented storm impact here in New York City, and that's what we got. So while the worst of the storm is past, conditions are still dangerous. I just can't stress that enough. We will have some coastal flooding in effect today until about 3 p.m. We'll update you if that changes. but stay away from the parks. They're all closed. Don't go near damaged trees, beaches, sidewalks, or seawalls. People have lost their lives. I know it's fun to look and it's fun to challenge nature, but nature is an awful lot more powerful than we are, and we just don't need any more fatalities. That's a recap of where we are. Our two biggest challenges going forward will be getting our transit system and power grid up and running, and we'll do everything humanly possible to assist the MTA and Con Ed in doing that. This morning we continue to focus on life-saving operations, not only fighting fires, but protecting our hospitals and nursing homes. But when we get through the days ahead, we will get through the days ahead by doing what we always do in tough times, by standing together, shoulder to shoulder, ready to help a neighbor, comfort a stranger, and get the city we love back on its feet. I will continue to update you throughout the day. Later in the day, I'll be surveying some of the areas where there's the most severe damage. We'll take a few questions, but before, let me just try to summarize for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. El huracán Sandy le ha pegado fuerte a Nueva York. El clima sigue peligroso. Seguimos bajo un aviso de inundación costal hasta las 3 de la tarde. Hay muchas personas sin electricidad. Casi todos los puentes y túneles siguen cerrados y también el transporte público está suspendido. Estamos trabajando para evaluar los daños y empezar a reparar nuestra ciudad en el tiempo en el futuro. I'd be happy to take some questions. We're only going to take a few because they just get repetitive, and we all have to get back upstairs. We're really trying to do something. Yes.
Mayor, can you tell us a little bit of what happened last night upstairs? I assume you spent the night over there, and you were having all these pictures coming on the monitors. We saw from our windows, like transformers exploding all over the city. What was going on last night? Can you?
Well, we had a storm of unprecedented proportions, and as you would expect, these things don't happen gradually. All the problems come together. If you lose electricity, you lose all of a sudden. You've got to worry about your hospitals and evacuating people. When you have a transformer fire that may have caused the loss of electricity, you've got a fire. When the wind is there, the fires spread. When the tide is the highest, it's the hardest for your equipment to get to where people really have, and that's why we kept asking people to leave, why we had a mandatory order to leave those areas, because when somebody is in trouble, our first responders will respond, but they have to put their own lives at risk to do so. And fortunately, we have not lost any of our first responders doing their duty. But it continues to be dangerous. If you were to go in the water, for example, and we've got to go in to save you, what happens if our first responders die? Yes, sir.
Yeah, when do you expect the subway system to be up and running again?
Good 4 or 5 days, I think, before. We don't, at this point, we don't know. But if you had to guess, Con Ed and the subways, 3-4 days, and I'd be happy to, if that's what it turns out to be. Yes, sir.
What changes do you expect to put in place to get prepared for the next storm based on what you're
we will do plenty of analysis, you can rest assured. Right now, we're trying to get through this storm, and then we'll come. I don't know how practical it is to put gates on path tubes and subway tunnels. They were designed 100 years ago without really thinking long and hard about the kinds of problems we might face. What is clear is that the storms that we've experienced in the last year or so around this country and around the world are much more severe than before. Whether that's global warming or what, I don't know, but we'll have to address those issues. Yes, Miss, back there.
Can you talk about the rescue in Breezy Point? We heard the cops only had rowboats. They didn't have any motorboats.
We had plenty of motorboats. They just can't go where the water isn't very deep. They have also the boats they have are boats that they can carry on the top of police cars. The fire department has a number of boats. We got some boats from Nassau County. When there's just thousands of people that you may have to get to spread all over a very big city, the resources you have are never going to be enough in any one place. But we think we got to every single person that did call and say they had an emergency. Our police department and fire department certainly were working all night. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about the number of rescues that went on through the night and maybe talk about some of the conditions the cops and the firefighters had faced, specifically in Rockaways where,
Well, they put their lives on the line. I don't think it's any ways to describe it other than what you would expect. When called, we answer. But sometimes you wonder why we have to put ourselves in the situation where we might need help. Prudence says you should be cautious. I think people don't understand just how strong nature is. We'll take two questions, then I want to get the Senator to give us a update on federal efforts. Yes, sir.
The NYU Medical Center, do you have any details on why the power went down there and an update?
Generator did failed. We don't know. You can't get answers when the engineers are looking at things. You want them to go fix things, and then we'll do a post-mortem afterwards. It doesn't matter why it happened at this point. The only reason that we care about why it happened is so it doesn't happen the next time. But we've got to fix it right now. Yes, sir, and then you too.
Mr. Mayor, what information can you provide on how the 10 fatalities occurred?
How the what?
How the 10 fatalities.
Oh, there were a whole variety of things. Somebody was in their bed and a tree fell and went right through the house and killed them. Somebody stepped in a pond or in a puddle where there was an electric wire. Those kinds of things are what you would expect. We had a couple bodies in somebody's house. They drowned. We're not quite sure why. Yes.
Do you believe that the problems with 9/11 that you had last night contributed to?
None whatsoever. If a tree falls on you and you're in bed and you're dead, 9/11's not going to help you. There's no reason to believe that our services didn't get to save anybody. I think in every case it was somebody died pretty instantaneously. Last question,
I
Miss.
heard reports of rescue workers being injured while they were responding. Do you have any numbers on how many?
No, and it's just too early to tell. But, you know, when you're running around with trying to save people's lives, our first responders don't stop when they get injured. They keep going. Chuck, you want to give us an update on federal? And I think we do have to get back to upstairs. Oh, yes, the water supply is safe. We put some extra chlorine in the water, but we've been testing all the water from upstate, and it's perfectly safe to drink. If it tastes like it has a little more chlorine in it, it's because we want to take extra precautions. But the water supply is fine.
And the water on the streets, people
don't drink it.
Should be stepping in the water. I mean,
well, it's going away. I mean, we're past the high water, the last high tide. And we do not expect to have any flooding from now on.
And no worries about nuclear reactors around the area?
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And first I want to thank the Mayor and his entire staff for the great job they do. I can tell you, having talked to FEMA numerous times, the one thing that gives them relief is that New York City does this better than just about anybody else, and they've repeated that to me over and over again. I think New Yorkers can be proud of you and your team, Mayor. Let me say this first. The President's given aggressive orders to give New York whatever it needs from the federal end, and right now FEMA is doing a whole bunch of things in the immediate moment. I've spoken to Craig Fugate a whole bunch of times, and he says in terms of their immediate needs, there's no shortage of dollars. They have generators coming in. They have IMAT teams coming in. The Army Corps has a dewatering team, a pumping team in Manhattan as well under the orders of General Bostic. Second, there are other kinds of things we're trying to do. I mean, just supplementing what has happened. The Department of Transportation has given permission for over 200 crews from Pacific Gas and Electric to travel across the country to help Con Ed restore its lines. Obviously, we can't go to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, or Maryland for crews, and so they had to do that. I've also spoken to the head of Caterpillar, and they're going to send over 200 generators that are needed by various hospitals and other things. But the main job we're going to have is to make sure that the city and the state and all the localities around are reimbursed. The federal program for reimbursement is generous to our localities, set minimum of 75%. Sometimes it goes higher. It applies not just to the city and state and towns and villages, but the MTA and others. I've gotten a whole bunch of calls from my colleagues this morning pledging support, and we're going to have to stand together as a nation behind New York. Fortunately, the loss of life and even property was not as great as 9/11, but it's a terrible tragedy, and I believe that our country will stand behind us when we seek the reimbursement funds that are needed. Thank you, Mayor.
Chuck, thank you. I want to point out that Speaker Quinn and the City Council she's been directing have been very helpful in terms of reaching out to different communities. The President called about 11:45 last night. I'm going to talk to him later on this morning, offering any help that we might need that they can provide. The bottom line is I think we're as well positioned, and the damage is extensive, but the loss of life, while every one loss of life is tragic, given the magnitude of the storm, we probably have gotten through this better than some people might have thought. But once again, it is still dangerous out there, and we need the cooperation of the public. The governor and I and his staff, our staffs have had conversations in terms of getting mass transit back as quickly as possible. And our concerns, one time more, is mass transit, 3 or 4 days, and who knows whether it'll all be up by then. It depends what damage they find done when they pump out the tunnels, whether it's the tunnels for traffic or the tunnels for subway. And Con Ed, without electricity, a lot of things don't work. It's very inconvenient for a lot of people and dangerous. And so we'll have to watch that and be very careful. Candles are fine to provide light, but don't put them near drapes, the normal common sense things that we have to do. And we'll try to provide you with an update later today from driving. Bridges and the roads seem to be in good shape. If they're not open yet, they will be very soon. Thank you very much.